In 1927, near the ancient ruins of Gerar in modern-day Israel, archaeologists uncovered a network of primitive irrigation channels, carved by hand, precisely directed and clearly ancient. At first, they didn't connect the dots, but later comparisons with Genesis 26:12 reframed the entire discovery. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. What they found didn't just confirm the verse, it helped explain it. These were not random blessings falling from heaven. They were part of a carefully structured environment of divine timing, strategic action, and covenant alignment. And when you understand what was happening historically and spiritually in that land, this verse becomes more than a miracle. It becomes a map. If you've heard this verse preached before, chances are the focus was on obedience or favor. And while those elements are true, they're incomplete. Most Christians live in the tension of this passage. Was this a one-time act of divine intervention, or is there a replicable principle beneath it? That confusion is valid. And it exists because the original Hebrew, cultural patterns and historical context are rarely explored. You see, the Bible was not written in a vacuum. It emerged in a real-world setting of famine, family conflict, geopolitical pressure, and survival. Isaac was not sowing in perfect conditions. He was sowing in crisis. And that's exactly where the story of multiplication begins. In this video, we're going to look deeper into Genesis 26 and uncover what ancient Jewish scholars understood that modern readers often miss. You'll learn why the hundredfold harvest wasn't just symbolic, but agricultural, and how timing, land stewardship, covenant obedience, and spiritual alignment work together to create a measurable outcome. This isn't a prosperity formula, it's a biblical pattern. And by the end of this teaching, you'll understand what that pattern looked like, how it was designed to work in its original context, and how it still speaks into modern decisions, financially, spiritually, and practically. Let's begin with the first element that's almost always overlooked, the famine. Genesis 26 doesn't begin with blessing, it begins with lack. But that lack wasn't a punishment, it was a stage. And understanding why Isaac stayed in the land of famine is the key to unlocking what happened next. If this perspective is already opening something new for you, tapping the like button helps YouTube recommend this to others searching for depth in their spiritual journey. It's a small action with real impact. Now let's look at why the famine wasn't a delay, but the very condition that made the 100-fold harvest possible. In 1995, archaeologists excavating near Tel Be'er-Sheva, an area believed to be close to ancient Gerar, discovered a series of ancient wells and irrigation tunnels dating back thousands of years. These weren't just shallow pits. They were part of a system designed to capture underground water and distribute it to nearby fields, even during seasons of drought. This is significant because Genesis 26 begins with a famine. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. Isaac was living in an economic and environmental crisis, and yet he planted crops. In the same year, according to Genesis 26:12, he reaped 100-fold harvest. Most people read that as a miracle, and yes, it was. But it was also a moment of strategy, faith, and bold decision-making. Ancient records from the region show that planting during a famine was almost unthinkable. The soil was dry, the skies were silent, and the risk of total loss was high. But Isaac had something most others didn't: access to water. Genesis 26 repeatedly mentions wells, many of which had been dug by his father Abraham. This suggests Isaac was not just surviving, he was leveraging generational knowledge to make decisions that aligned with both wisdom and covenant promises. The phrase reaped 100-fold wasn't metaphorical in ancient texts. It referred to a real, measurable yield, a harvest 10 times larger than the average in a good year. In a famine year, that result would have made Isaac the most economically powerful man in the region. This wasn't prosperity magic. It was a combination of faith, action, and intelligent resource use. Now let's look at the theological layers beneath this moment. Genesis 26:12 says, Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him. Notice the order. Isaac sowed first. He took the risk. The blessing followed. This aligns with another verse later in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 28:12. The Lord will bless all the work of your hands, not your thoughts, not your hopes, your hands. God blesses movement, not inertia. And here's where it gets deeper. In ancient Jewish culture, sowing during a famine was a public statement of hope. It meant you believed that the invisible would become visible, that dry soil could produce life, that your action today would bring provision tomorrow, even when every external condition said otherwise. Different theological traditions view this passage through different lenses. Some emphasize divine sovereignty. God chose to bless Isaac. Others focus on obedience. Isaac acted despite fear. Still others highlight wisdom. He used what was already available to him. All of these can be true, and together they form a pattern. God works through aligned obedience, practical stewardship, and informed risk. So what does this mean in today's world? It means you don't need perfect conditions to move forward. Isaac planted in famine. You can make decisions even in uncertain times, financially, professionally, or spiritually, when you move with faith and wisdom. It also means you may already have access to something that seems ordinary, like a well you've forgotten about, a skill, a relationship, a connection. That well might be the foundation for your next season of growth. Finally, it means the blessing isn't the finish line. In fact, Isaac's prosperity triggered jealousy and conflict. The very next verse says the Philistines envied him. That's where we'll go next, because real success often attracts real pressure. In Matthew 25:14-30, Jesus tells the parable of the talents. And here's what most people miss. A talent wasn't a skill. It was a large sum of money, worth about 20 years of wages. Jesus is telling a story about how we manage what God entrusts to us. In the story, the first two servants take action. They invest what they're given and double it. The third servant, out of fear, hides it. He loses nothing, but he also gains nothing, and he's the only one who is called wicked. In ancient Jewish culture, this parable wasn't just spiritual, it was deeply practical. The word used for their trading was the same used in ancient business records for legitimate strategic activity. Jesus isn't warning against wealth. He's warning against wasting opportunity. This reinforces what we saw with Isaac. Blessing didn't come through waiting. It came through movement, calculated, faithful, timely action in hard conditions. And this isn't an isolated idea. The Bible repeats this pattern again and again. Abraham was wealthy and called a friend of God. Job was the richest man in the East, yet God described him as blameless. Lydia ran a successful business in a luxury market, and she became the first Christian in Europe. The early church shared their wealth, not because money was evil, but because generosity was the natural result of transformation. Even when Jesus meets the rich young ruler, he doesn't condemn his money. He challenges his attachment to it. And when Zacchaeus turns his wealth into restitution, Jesus calls him a true son of Abraham. Scripture doesn't condemn money. It challenges greed, fear, and selfishness. Paul says in 1 Timothy 6:10 that the love of money, not money itself, is the root of all kinds of evil. Maybe you've been told that wanting financial security means you lack faith, but that's not biblical. Scripture calls us to wise stewardship, open-handed generosity, and total trust in God, not total rejection of resources. So here's what I'd love to hear from you. How have you wrestled with this in your own life? Have you ever felt tension between trusting God and managing finances? What's been the biggest challenge for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely read every single one, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Here's where this gets genuinely complex, and I want to be honest about it. The Bible presents us with powerful, sometimes conflicting values when it comes to money and stewardship. On one hand, we're told to give freely. In Luke 6:30, Jesus says to give to everyone who asks. In Luke 12:33, he tells his followers to sell their possessions and give to the poor. In Matthew 6:19, he warns us not to store up treasures on earth. But then in 1 Timothy 5:8, Paul writes that anyone who does not provide for their own family has denied the faith. In Proverbs 6, we're told to imitate the ant, which stores provisions in summer. Proverbs 21 commends planning and diligence as paths to abundance. So which is it? Give radically or plan wisely, sacrifice everything or steward carefully. These aren't contradictions, but they do create tension, and that tension is real. You've probably felt it. Should I give more to a missionary or invest in my family's future? Should I turn down a high-paying job to serve in ministry, or can I do both? Should I hold back to protect or step forward in generosity? There's no formula. And if anyone tries to give you one, they're oversimplifying a deeply personal and spiritual journey. Scripture gives us principles, not step-by-step instructions. It calls us into a relationship of wisdom, faith, and discernment. And that's harder, but more honest. So how do we begin navigating it? Not with a formula, but with a framework. Start here. What season are you in? And what has God called you to in this moment? A single adult will steward money differently than a parent with 3 kids. A missionary's needs are different from a small business owner's. Your calling shapes your priorities, and that's okay. Second, what's happening in your heart? Are you anxious about money or at peace? Do you hold your resources with open hands or a closed fist? Are you trusting God with your finances or trying to control every outcome? Third, who are you talking to? Proverbs says, wisdom comes through many counselors. Don't navigate this alone. Bring trusted, spiritually mature people into your decision-making. Fourth, are you holding your plans loosely? You can prepare well and still be willing to pivot. Sometimes God calls business people into ministry, and sometimes he sends ministers into the marketplace. Faithful stewardship includes flexibility. This isn't about getting it perfect. It's about walking with God, honestly, as you make decisions. It's about inviting him into your finances, not just praying over them after decisions are made. So where are you in this framework right now? Are you in a season of building or releasing? Are you holding back out of wisdom or fear? Are your financial choices led by peace or by pressure? Are you trusting God or trusting your strategy? There's no shame in any of this, just an invitation to tell yourself the truth, because transformation doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with clarity. And clarity starts by naming where you really are. Let that be your next step. We've covered a lot of ground together. Let's bring it home. We started with Genesis 26:12 and the question, what does it really mean that Isaac reaped 100-fold in a year of famine? We explored how this wasn't just a miracle. It was a moment of informed risk, ancestral wisdom, and covenant obedience. Then we saw how Jesus affirmed active, courageous stewardship in the parable of the talents, not through perfection, but through faith expressed in action. And finally, we traced a pattern across Scripture. God doesn't condemn wealth. He challenges how we relate to it. We wrestled with real tensions between radical generosity and practical provision, between trust and planning, between fear and faith. What emerged wasn't a formula, but a framework. Faithful action in hard times, stewardship rooted in calling, and wisdom shaped by the Spirit, not by pressure. If you want to take this further, here are 3 steps to start this week. First, take inventory, not just of your finances, but your mindset. Are you managing resources or reacting to fear? Get clear about your current reality. No shame, just clarity. Second, choose one small act of alignment. Maybe it's setting up a giving rhythm that reflects your values. Maybe it's having a financial conversation with someone you trust. Maybe it's choosing to move forward on something you've been delaying out of fear. One act of faith is worth more than 10 perfect intentions. Third, keep learning. This is just the beginning. The Bible has more to say about money, stewardship, risk, and purpose than most people ever realize. There's wisdom here that will stretch and strengthen your life if you keep pressing in. Now, this leads to a question many Christians wrestle with. If God calls us to be wise stewards, why does Jesus also say, "Don't worry about tomorrow," in Matthew 6:34? Isn't planning for the future a form of worry? In the next video, we're going to dive into that exact tension, what it means to trust God fully while preparing wisely. It's one of the most misunderstood dynamics in spiritual growth, and it may just unlock a whole new level of peace and purpose for you. So if this content resonated with you, stay with us. The journey is just getting started. If you've stayed with me through this deep dive, thank you. That kind of attention says a lot about your hunger for real biblical insight. If you want more content that explores Scripture with depth, honesty, and historical context, subscribe. I release new videos every week, always designed to challenge, clarify, and encourage your walk. Next, I suggest watching The Biblical Tension Between Planning and Trust. It unpacks why Jesus told us not to worry, and what that really means for financial wisdom today. Whatever season you're in, keep pressing in. Faith grows in questions, not just in answers. I'm honored to be part of that journey with you.